Welcome back to another episode of Peak Performers Podcast. I'm your host, Thor Conklin. In today's episode, we're going to continue with the 52 things I screwed up in business. Don't do what I did.
Welcome to this edition of Peak Performers Podcast with your host, Thor Conklin. Thor will be sharing the necessary tools, strategies, and psychology you'll need to become a peak performer in any area of your life or business.
Thor Conklin here. We give you the tricks, the tips, the tools, the strategy, the technology, and the psychology peak performers use in order to get more done and execute at the highest level. If you know what to do but struggle with getting it all done, or simply want to raise your game to the next level, this podcast is for you. Sit back and enjoy. Thanks for joining me today. You know, I absolutely love sharing my screw-ups. Well, I probably don't like discussing some of these, but you know what? If you can learn from my mistakes, great. There's no reason that you should do these yourself. I wish someone taught me how to make these mistakes, and I did not do them myself, but I have to own these. So I had a business that was actually a combination of three partners. We all own 33% of this business, which, by the way, is the worst structure possible in a partnership because you're always trying to get one person to side with you, and there's always this like internal fighting going on. So please, if you're going to start a partnership, do not do it with three people and do not have it 33, 33, 33. Bad idea. So right from the beginning, we had a bad structure. But let me tell you the mistake, or one of the mistakes that we did with this particular business. So three friends to come together. We start this business. It was an insurance brokerage operation. And we didn't know where it was going to go. We all liked each other. We were all in the insurance business. And we decided, you know what? Let's join forces and let's see what we can do here. And of course, you know, there was no business on the books right away, you know, in the beginning. So there wasn't really any money involved, any substantial money involved anyway. So a lot of the things were kind of done very loosey-goosey. And I had been around long enough that I knew that this was not a good idea. And I thought about it and I said, look, I do not want to move forward with this thing unless we can agree up front that everything is taken care of. We've got our proper documents in order now because it just gets more difficult once we start operating the business. Plus, we get busier. Well, I kind of lost that argument, kind of got dragged along, and pretty soon I found myself in a partnership where we did not have an operating agreement. Now, I know many of you out there are cringing right away because you know where this is going. So an operating agreement is a critical part of any business where there's a partnership. It should be actually part of any business, and when you're in a partnership, you've got to have an operating agreement if you've got an LLC or a partnership out there. So what it does, it says, okay, who owns what, right? What are the members' interest in this partnership? What are the shares? What are the percentage ownership in this? Is there different ownership classes, which you can actually have? Capital contributions. Who's contributing what sort of capital to this organization? When do you get that capital back? Do you get that capital back? When it happens? Do you have interest on that capital? What's involved? It outlines the management, okay? Who is going to do what? One of the things that you're going to learn that he who controls the bank account sometimes controls the company in the absence of any sort of agreement. Voting rights. Does everyone have the same voting rights? What does it take in order for something to pass? Do you need majority? Do you need everyone to agree? You know, what's the rules? This is the playbook that tells you what you can do, can't do. It's the outline of the structure of the rules of the game. And you need that, especially when you have more than one person involved. Who's going to control the books and the records? What accountant are you going to use? What sort of vendors are you going to use? Whose choice is it? You know, what if one of the partners has a cousin or an uncle or a wife that does bookkeeping? Are we going to use them? And if we do, what ends up happening if something doesn't work out correctly? Talks about limitations on liability and indemnification. Anti-dilution protection. You know, you can find yourself into an organization, into a partnership where you actually start getting diluted because you're one class of member, and you find yourself, your ownership in this business keeps going down. You do not want to be in that situation. What about transferring your rights or selling your rights, right? What if you want to get out of a business? What happens then? How does that all work? What if someone decides to buy the business, either one of the partners or an outside company? One person says, let's sell. The other people say, no, we don't want to sell. Two people say yes, but the third one's a holdout. What do? You've got to go back to the operating agreement. That's why you need one. And what ends up happening is, in the beginning, it's easy to not really want to spend the time working on these details, right? There's no business in the beginning. It's a brand new company. Why spend all the time doing this? We'll just take care of that later. But once you start making money and it becomes significant money, guess what? That's not the time to be sitting there negotiating with your partners, your friends, about what you're going to do. In this particular case, two of the partners don't talk to each other anymore. I mean, there was that much bad blood at the end of this whole thing. So not a good situation. Confidentiality, how is that treated? There's all kinds of different things. What about an event of a liquidation? What do? There's all kinds of issues. Now, let me address a couple more. What happens if a partner stops working or just isn't, quite frankly, just carrying his load, right? Everyone else is doing more of the work and one guy's just kind of goofing off playing golf or just not engaged at all. It happens all the time. What if one dies? What if they get divorced? Do you want to be in business with their wife or their husband? What about somebody goes out to the bank and gets a loan in the name of the company? Happens all the time. Guess who's responsible to repay that loan? You guessed it, the company. And in some cases, you might be on the hook for that one. Yes, you got it. What about salaries? Who gets paid what? When does that increase? When does it decrease? How does it change? How do you vote on that? Trust me, these are issues you do not want to take care of while you're in the midst of operating the company and it's growing. And the more money you're making, trust me, these issues get bigger and bigger and bigger. Generally, at the end of these episodes, I ask a question, but today is not going to be a question. Today is going to be direction. If you are a member in an organization and you have partners and you do not have an operating agreement, stop right now and get an operating agreement in place. Do it now. You do not want to wait. I hope you have an amazing week. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing you back here.